everybody. I am sitting here with the Brunsons. This is so exciting. I've got Russell and Collette. This is like dream interview right here. I've been so excited for this interview for a couple of reasons. The first one is when this airs, I will have just celebrated the 3-year anniversary of my podcast.
Yeah.
We launched with a more focused direction. And I was just telling these guys, besides my children, this podcast is literally the coolest thing that has ever come through me. And you guys, Russell and Collette, have been such an integral part of that. So I want to just start off by thanking you for like helping me create this. It's just been such an amazing experience for me. And then number two, when I think about anyone who has been super successful and exemplify a true dedication to their marriage and their family, I can't think of anyone in the world, literally in the world, better to speak about this than you guys. So this is like dream interview right here. I think it will be so incredibly valuable, not only to entrepreneurs, but to families at any point in their journey. I'm really excited. Should we just dive in?
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're excited too.
Yay. Well, I feel like you need no introduction, but for those who might not know you as well, can you start by just telling us a little bit about yourselves and your family and what you guys do?
Yeah. This is my beautiful wife, Collette. I found her 18 years ago, and I used all my sales skills to convince her to marry me. We've been married ever since. We've got 5 amazing kids, 3 teenagers, which is
a lot of work.
3 teenagers and then 2 younger ones. And what else?
We have Monica as a neighbor, which is amazing. We moved into this neighborhood, like 5.5 years ago, and I can't even believe it's been that long. And man, you just got to hold on tight because this journey really moves quickly and got to embrace every moment, right?
It's so true. I love that. I love that. So I'll start by telling just a little bit of a story about me. So I dropped out of a graduate program after my last child went to school. I started a graduate program because I thought I wanted to be a marriage and family counselor. And I got about a year into that program and I was like, this isn't right. Like I knew I didn't want to be a therapist, but I knew I wanted to help families. And so I actually got really depressed. And I'm certain it was Collette who prodded this, but Russell, just being a really good friend and neighbor, came over to check on our family. And I told him about like how I felt like I had this thing that was inside of me that I wanted to get out in the world. And I just had no idea how I would ever do it. And I remember he sat on my couch. Do you remember this conversation, Russell? Yeah. And he said, you need to start a podcast. And I was like, I think I probably looked at you like you had 2 heads. Like, what does that even mean? What would I even do? I thought you were crazy. And then all of a sudden the objections started like flying out of me. The first one was, what the heck would I even say? Do you remember what you said to that?
I probably told you start talking, you'll figure it out along the way, right?
You did. You said, start talking and you'll find your voice. That's what you said. And I was like, okay. And I remember thinking, I don't know what to do. And you said, I'll send you an email with all the information. And I was like, okay. And I will be forever grateful for that, as it has applied not only to my podcast, this Start Talking and You'll Find Your Voice, but every area of my life. I've seen it just totally, it's just transformed everything about who I am and what I do and how I speak. So I'm like forever grateful for that advice. Like, just start talking and you'll find your voice. And then my second objection was, why would anyone ever listen to me? I'm not qualified. I don't have any credentials. My question for you, Russell, is what do you say to anyone listening who feels like they have a message they want to share or a prompting on their heart, but they don't feel qualified?
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't think anyone feels qualified. That's what's funny. Like, people assume they know who I am. Like, oh, you're really good at marketing. You must be good at that. And the reality is, like, it's funny. People will pay me for my marketing advice. I'm like, do you know what I got my marketing class in school? And they're like, what? I'm like, I got a C, barely. Like, that was really close too. And it's funny because I think a lot of times they think that the credentials are the key, and it's not. It's like your willingness or your you wanting to serve, like that's more important for most things. Obviously, there's things you have to have credentials for. If you're going to be a doctor and cut someone open, you should probably have a degree. But a lot of times we can help people along the journey. So I always tell people, like, just start helping now. And there's gifts and things you've been given that you can start working with now. It's funny looking back, because I do remember that conversation, and it's a lot of times, like, people who will tell me something, and it's just like I sit there in my head like, do I give them my real advice or do I not? Like, I could ruin their life and start them on this path that now 3 years later they're, and a lot of times I'll just like, oh, but for you, for whatever reason, I was like, yeah, you should start this thing. And I just want to say congratulations to you for actually doing it and sticking with it, because even first off, most people never start it. Those who do start it typically stop really, really quickly. And it's rare that people will keep doing it consistently. Now you said you're 3 years in, which is the key. And as you know, it takes a while to, like, first off, figure out what you're going to talk about, find your voice. And it takes time as well for people to kind of find you. And so it's got to be consistent for it to actually work. And most people fall out way before they ever get there. So I think the bigger thing is not like, what am I qualified about? It's like, I wasn't qualified about to do anything when I started. I just started talking because I was excited about this topic. So I would talk and I would talk and I would talk. And as I was talking, I would learn more stuff and start figuring things out. And that, like, the process, what qualifies you, and sticking through it. So anyway.
Here's another funny thing about that conversation is I had no idea who Russell Brunson was when we were having, it wasn't like I was listening to you because you were Russell Brunson. Now I do. But back then you were just a friendly neighbor, and what you said just touched my heart. And I was like, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. I need to do it. Like,
He looks like he's 11. He's got to know what he's talking about.
I'm like, I mean, he's got something figured out. I don't know what, but I didn't know at the time. And now I know. We listen to Russell. We do what Russell says. But, but Collette, I want to go like way back to the beginning with this, because here you are, probably this gorgeous, talented girl, and you decide to take a chance on this goofy, introverted wrestler. You get married and you're supporting the family because Russell is on a wrestling scholarship and can't even get a job. I imagine it happened something like this. Russell comes to you one day and he's like, babe, I'm going to make a bunch of money selling stuff online. Like, I want to know what was going through your head when he said this and you were like, you're making a C in marketing. Like, what are you even thinking?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, let's see, where do we begin? Like, when he started doing that and was that goofy wrestler, we didn't have our family quite yet. And so it was kind of fun to learn and just let him do his thing. I mean, I would just go to the office and do my thing. And, but yeah, I mean, the funniest part about this journey is after we did start our family and things are progressing with, the growth of how quickly our family came. I think a lot of it was he would come to me and say, yeah, I'm going to sell all this stuff. And oh my gosh, I think this is it. This is the one. This is the one. And I remember the very first name he came with me, the branding name he came up with, his company was Exciteware.
I was thinking exciting software. I'm like, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. And I was like, no. You're on the internet and you're going to do Exciteware. My mind goes naughty, right? Like, I'm thinking lingerie. I don't know where it went, but it went.
And I'd already bought the domain name, which was like $10 I didn't have, or $20 or something. I was like, I can't change it. Like, that's
I know. So I'm like, you might want to rethink the name if you're going to be working on the internet, because my biggest fear truly was like, we watch a lot of things with Ponzi schemes and all this spamming, and I don't know. It scared the heck out of me. And so
she always asks me, is this legal? This is legal, right?
I'm not going to have to be bail you out of jail somewhere, right? Like, I don't know. So it was really scary for me in the beginning, just because I was so uncertain of what this world could bring. But yeah, I don't know what I was thinking when he was like, this is it. And I would just kind of just lovingly look at him and be like, I'm pretty happy where we're at. But if it takes off, it takes off. If it doesn't, we're good. So, but it was just funny because I was like, how many boxes of things from eBay are we going to sit here with until you sell that stuff? Or
there's so many things. It's funny because, like, a lot of people think it started with just like software, but like, I remember like one time I was like, I'm going to learn how to build computers. And so I was buying all these computer pieces off eBay, and then I was going to build a computer and then sell it. And so I was buying all the pieces and I got them all shipped together, and I didn't know how to make a computer. So I'm trying to figure out how to like put it all together. And finally I got it, and I was trying to sell it, and nobody would buy it. And I was like, oh no, because I think it was like $600 on a credit card I spent in computer pieces. And so I was like putting it on not Craigslist, on Thrifty Nickel, or I don't know. I was trying to sell it. I remember we finally sold it, and the guy bought it for $200. I remember he came home, and I was like, I have $200, and you're so excited. And then I didn't want to tell you I spent $600 to make the 200, but we had $200.
$400 in the hole.
It was like a lot of things like that. So the fact that she didn't, you know,
I don't know.
make you stop was good.
Oh man, these stories are priceless. Oh, I love it. Okay, so I'm going to prompt some more here, but by telling you a little bit more of my story. So I followed your instructions for starting a podcast. I also you gave me a copy of Expert Secrets that day. And I remember I was like, you wrote this? And you were like, yeah. And I was like, oh. So I read it cover to cover, started my podcast a month later. And I remember talking to you just after that, and you asked how it was going. And I told you I didn't think that I sounded very good, and I wasn't super sure what I was doing. And you said, do you remember what you said?
I can imagine. I probably said, it doesn't matter because nobody's listening to you anyway.
You're so good. You actually said everybody sucks at the beginning, but it's totally okay because nobody's listening to you anyways. And I was like, okay. And I remember you said, listen, you've got about 30 episodes to figure it out. Like you'll just get a little bit better each time, and you've got about 30 episodes. And I was like, I clung to that. I was like, okay, if I make it to 30 episodes and I still suck like this, but I didn't. Like with every episode, I got a little bit better and a little bit better. And the other thing you said to me, which you've already mentioned, but you said the most important thing is that you stick around long enough to get noticed. And I literally say that to myself all the time. Stick around long enough to get noticed, Monica. Just stick around long enough to get noticed. And my question for you is this. I know you created so many funnels, like I think 150, right? Before, everything took off. You cycled, you invested time and energy and money into things before you found the thing. So all those years that you were just like leaving and saying, I think I found the thing, and then I didn't find the thing, like what kept you going through all of that?
Yeah. I think it was like, so I kind of stumbled upon this. I was young, like a little before college, I learned about it. But then when I was in college, all the time Collette and I met is when I kind of got reintroduced to it, and I saw what people were doing. And I remember back then, it was before there were webinars or things. There were these teleseminars. So these people would do teleseminars. They call on the phone, they talk about what they were doing. And I was wrestling and going to school, so I could never listen to teleseminar, but I'd always download the audio later and burn it on a CD. And I listened to it like I go on wrestling tournaments. I would drive these long road trips, and I just listen to these CDs in the car like for hours. And I remember like I feel like I found something. Like I found like the secret thing, and I was like so excited. I was just like, this is so crazy. How does nobody know about this? And I was so excited by it. I think that's why I started. I was so excited. And then as I kept trying it, it just didn't work. It didn't work. But I believed it did, because I was like, that guy did, that guy, like I saw the people doing it. So I kept trying and trying. And then when I had a little bit of success, I was like, okay, this works. Like, do you remember the Grinch sell for Christmas?
Yes.
So like one of the first things I did that actually made enough money that like was actually real. It was right before Christmas, and Collette had wanted this new couch. I didn't have any money for a couch. I was like kind of embarrassed. I'm like supposed to be the provider and the husband. And we went to RC William and found the couch, but it was like, I don't remember how much it cost, a couple $1,000 that we didn't have. And so I remember I made this little webpage. It was like a Christmas promotion. There's a picture of the Grinch on it. And it was like, the Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes this day. And I can't remember. I had some like little story I told. And then I had these products I'd created and some products I'd bought resale rights from people. I put together this little package. And I was like, it's gonna be $27 today. And then tomorrow it goes up to $37. Every day gets a little more expensive for like a week. And I said, for the money I get, I'm gonna buy my wife a couch. So if you want to chip in and buy this thing, it'll be a great Christmas present. And I remember I promoted it I had a little customer list of a couple hundred people at a time. And I sold a couple of them. I went to bed. I woke up the next morning, and I had like a little affiliate program set up just so people could promote it. And some guy with a huge list found it and sent an email to his list to promote it. And we ended up in that week making over $30,000, which was like insane. And I was like, oh, and people would buy it, and they would send me the email. I got emails like, I bought the thing. Hope your wife loves the couch. Hope your wife loves the couch. And it's like, when it was done, like we went and bought the couch, and it was just like the coolest thing that like, we made money, and like I got to do something with it. And then all the money stopped. We hadn't made no money for like, I don't know, 7 or 8 months after that, because I was still wrestling. Like, I don't know what I did, but it worked that one time. And just like trying to figure these things out. We had little successes every once in a while here and there. But I was just like so excited. And I remember I started like trying to tell people about it. Like everyone who I met, I tell my dad and my brothers and like friends at school and at church. And most people just look at you like, oh yeah, that's awesome, you know? But I was like, and I was confused, like, why aren't people as excited about as me? And I just kept talking. And eventually some people started caring, and they started, you know, following, and it slowly over year after year after year grew. So I think the reason why I stuck with it is I was just so excited. Like I couldn't figure out why everyone else wasn't excited. And I kept talking, even though, you know, maybe it wasn't because I was making money that people were showing up. I was just so excited by it. I kept doing that. Now fast forward 15 years later, you know, if you keep being passionate about something long enough, then you start getting other people passionate. Other people start getting excited. To now, you know, we get thousands of people that show up to our events, and they're all on fire, and it's exciting. So
yeah. And along with that, I remember that first when he's like, oh my gosh, we just made 30K. And I was like, what? I was like, what? And then I was like, how can we spend it all? And I remember my father-in-law messaging, or he said, sweetheart, you need to remember that it's a marathon, not a race. And so I'm like, oh, that has always stuck with me. I'm like, you got to be really smart, because then you have to make that last. Yeah. But that advice from my father-in-law has stuck with me. Like it's a marathon. Got to keep working and running. It's not a race. So don't get too excited.
Especially when you're starting the journey. Like it's not like a job where you get a job and you get paid consistently every week. Like entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
it's like the peaks and the valleys, and just like, you know, a lot. I mean, because we were doing that for years before you ended up quitting your job, because it was like feast or famine. It was like, you need to make sure we get paid every week so we can pay the bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually my next question for Collette, because that couldn't have been easy to go up and down like that. I mean, my husband and I did that a little bit, but not, I don't think nearly as high and low swings. So, and like I've heard the stories where you like were planning, you were like so excited to take the boys to Disneyland, and Russell's like, we don't have any money. And I've seen the pictures where you like cut up the credit cards. Like, I want to know how many times in those years, like you were just like, oh, Russell, just when are you going to get us a real job? Like, can we just get a real job here?
Well, it's kind of funny because my mentality is a little bit different. And I don't know if it's because of our age difference. So I am a little bit older. So I feel like I have this level of independence. Now, listen, that still means I have triggers, and I'm still like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to make it? Those are real life things and things to be concerned about. But I feel like Russell said, he had this level of excitement. And man, when you have that excitement, that creates action and energy, right? And so you're like, okay, if you believe in this, then I'm going to believe in it too. And so, yeah, oh my gosh, like all of the ups and downs. I do remember my boys' birthdays are in December, and they were little. And I thought, oh my gosh, that would be so much fun to take him to Disneyland. I'm like, we're doing good. And Russell's way to protect me is not to communicate like all when we're down low. He tries to come up quick with the next thing. And so, yeah, I was like, yeah, we're doing awesome. We're going to go to Disneyland. And so I brought it up to him, and his face just kind of washed out. And he's like, oh, we're not okay. And I'm like, what? You got to tell these things to me before I'm planning Christmas. Like, so I think that was a lesson for him that day too, to become a little bit better of a communicator and a team player, because I mean, all I saw was the up, right? I never saw the downs a lot because he protected me from that. So maybe that's why I kept going. I mean, let him keep going because he did such a good job. I don't want to say not being fully honest, but I mean, just this energy. And he would always, gosh, the next idea would pop into his head. And man, I don't know how in the world he kept getting these ideas and making it work and making the next big thing, and until it crashed again. And just, I don't know. But yeah, I can see where it was exhausting on him and maybe a little bit on our family, but he did a good job of providing when needed and saving as needed. And I don't know, made it easy, a little easier.
I love
I
it.
think one thing that's helped me in that process is, I've seen it like the entrepreneurs I coach, where sometimes a spouse will come and if something doesn't work, they're like blaming the spouse, or like you're dumb,
Sure.
you're not doing it right. Like it was just a very personal thing where it was never like a,
Yeah.
like me. It wasn't like, because like, at least for me as a producer, it's like, I gotta have faith in myself and believe in myself. And she never tore me down. It was like, oh, that sucks. This thing didn't work. It was never like, what did you do? You know, and I see so many people who will attack the spouse who's trying to do the thing. And like, man, can you imagine like you're struggling anyway, you're trying to create, and then like that pressure on top of it, where Collette was really good at never like putting that on me. It was just like, oh, that sucks that this thing didn't work, whatever. But it was never like a personal attack, which I think is important for anyone who's having a spouse who's struggling. Like, don't blame it on them. Like, they're doing their best. They're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. And like the last thing they need is like the next thing to like be lumped on top of it. It's looking at the situation, not the person.
Yeah.
And we hit our knees a lot. Like, I feel like in that moment when we hit our lowest low, and I could see it in his face. And I mean, it was even after we spoke, I think Russell had spoken in Fiji with Tony, right? And so I was thinking, yeah, we've got this in the bag. We're doing so great. We've met Tony, like we've spoken at his events. And then, my gosh, we got hit so hard. And when I finally saw him go through that, I was like, oh my gosh, let's hit our knees and quickly like be here together. And because we can't do this on our own, right? We have, anyway, our higher power for sure, but to help us guide us.
I love that. Oh, I love all of this. Okay. So moving on, I actually really enjoy going back and listening to my older episodes and like seeing how far I've come, and just like
You're brave. I never listen to my old ones. I don't want to know.
I know. Well, you do such a good job, Russell, of like publish consistently. I mean, you basically say that till you're blue in the face, and it pays off. It does over time. But like, here's what I want to know about this, because one of my favorite things about you is how freely you share your beginnings. Like, you showed that video of, you know, where you're trying to sell something and it's super awkward and you were like barely even articulating what you had to offer, and then the toilet flushes in the background and you're like here we all are, like thousands of people in a room, like who sprinted to the front of the room to see Russell Brunson speak, right? And you're showing us this video of your super awkward beginning, right? And so for me, that's so inspiring, because I'm like, okay, if he can do that, if he can teach himself this skill and come this far, like anyone can do anything, right? And so like I know it doesn't come easily to you because I know you in real life. And so I know like you standing on stage in front of thousands of people and creating table rushes, like that's not like just that's not something you just woke up one day and could do. So I want to know what your advice is for mastering a skill set like you've been able to do.
Yeah. I would say one of my skill sets is I'm very, very, very coachable. I don't think I'm the best at anything. I was never the best athlete growing up. I was never the best. But I remember one of my Greg Williams, one of my freestyle coaches. I signed up for this freestyle club, and I remember I was wrestling this match. I got beat up really bad, and he pulled me aside afterwards, like, "Hey, you need to do this, this, and this." And I was like, "Okay, that's my coach. Therefore, I will do exactly what he said." When my next match, I did exactly what he said. And I beat the next guy. I remember he pulled me aside. He's like, "You did everything I just told you." I'm like, "Yeah, that's how it works." He's like, "Most people, I like match after match, the entire season, I keep telling things before they start picking up. You just did the thing." I was like, "Oh," and then the next match told me to do something I did, and I just believe when I hire someone to be a coach or someone's like someone I'm trusting, I just believe them. And I think that's what a lot of people have so skeptical of everything. Like, oh, coaching is like, oh, well, I see it when people I coach, like I'm coaching entrepreneurs is what I do. It's been my gift for 18 years to be doing this for people. And like, I still get people who come to me like, well, I don't know if, I'm like, all right, like, don't trust me. Like, I apparently know more than I do, but I don't know. But for me, I'm super coachable. So when I hire a coach, I just believe what they say without I don't talk back. I just, all right, I'm going to do what you said because I gave you money. And so when I first, like the speaking stuff, I remember I went to my very first event. It was Armin Warren's event, who's become a close friend, but I went to his event, and it was the first time I ever saw people do public speaking. And I'm the awkward, shy, nerdy kid in the back with my computer. I saw people like speak on stage and like people run the back. And I remember the first guy I watched do it, I think he's selling like a $2,000 product. I remember like watching people run the back, and I was doing the math, like 2, 4, 6, like he made $60,000 an hour. Next guy gets up, he was selling a $5,000 package. Saying I'm doing the math, like I made 120,000. I watched speaker after speaker the entire weekend doing that. And I was like, I have to learn that skill. Like I'm like not comfortable doing that, but I wasn't comfortable wrestling. I'm not comfortable doing a lot of these things. Like That's the skill. So the human being can step on a stage and make 6 figures in an hour. Like in my mind, I remember my dad made 6 figures a year, and I thought he was the richest person in the world. I had like 6 figures in a year was like insane money, and that dude did it in an hour. Like I have to learn that skill, and so I went and I found like who. I remember walking on the event, like who teaches whatever that just was. And there's a guy named John Childers. Armin had a program called Persuasion X. Bill Glazer had. There was 4 or 5 people who sold public speaking things. So I bought every single one of them with money I didn't have, and I studied them, and I just did exactly what they said. I remember Bill Glazer was like, "You don't teach in your presentation. You tell stories to break false belief." I'm like, "All right, I just did what they said, and I practiced and I practiced and I practiced until I went from, the very first time I spoke, not a single person walked to the back and bought, till a year and a half ago we did a lot more. So
you broke massive records. Okay.
Yeah, I think we have the record for most people buying from stage in an event. So but it's just I just trusted people I hired, trusted the coaches, and I think that's the biggest advice I can give someone is just like, if you hire someone for coaching, just put on blinders and just believe whatever they say, because there's a reason why you're coming to them, and it doesn't make sense to fight them, but that's what most people do.
Yeah.
I love that. So Collette, I want to know about the moment you first realized that your shy, introverted husband had so much impact on people. Like, when did you think that maybe this might be a little bigger than potato guns?
Well, actually, I mean, we have 5 kids. And so it was Nora, she's our baby number 5, 2015, Russell's first ClickFunnels event in Las Vegas. And Nora was 3 months old. And so I'm pretty emotional and hormonal. I don't know what was going on, but a lot of emotions. And I remember walking into this room and I was confused because I was like, okay, so these chairs, you're going to fill all of these chairs that are in here. And I think, what was that first event? Like 600 people. Yeah. And I just started doing this ugly cry, and the way the whole room was set up. And I remember Todd Dickerson, Russell's, the co-founder of ClickFunnels, his wife was standing next to me. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I can't stop doing the ugly cry." And so I think, let's see, we were married in 2002. And he did a lot of, traveling and speaking and things like that. But it wasn't until 2015 when I was, there and in that room and physically seeing what was going on, that I was like, oh my gosh. And then I did get a little bit panicked because I would see people that maybe 70s or 80s buying Russell's product. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're taking these people's money. Like, like the realization of like, what are they doing? And we're legit, right? So that realization too, like, we're legit, this is a real thing and changing lives. And then, I mean, fast forward all these years and people come up to me all of the time and just say, oh my gosh, your husband has changed my life. And I'm like, oh, I get it. And it fills my bucket, and I don't want to say allow Russell to go do what he does, but just not be, I don't want to say a nag either. I don't feel like I was ever really naggy, but a lot more gratitude, I guess, for what he was doing and changing person after person after person's lives. And I don't know, it was just a really cool thing for me to see.
So for me too, because I remember, because a couple times like we went to StomperNet, so a couple events you can do, but someone else's event I'd speak and then get off. That was the first time it was like our event. I feel like that first time you were kind of standoffish a little bit, and then now it's like Funnel Hacking Live, like let's front row in the middle of it, like on stage dancing, like just like in the heat of it. And it's just like fun for me to see her like plugging into the community, knowing all the people. And like, I remember when I first met Catherine Jones and I was like, oh, there's this girl, Catherine Jones, we're gonna have her speak. And I was like, oh, I know her. I tried to set up on a date with so-and-so, all these things. I was like, how do you know her? Like, oh, we're friends. We met in the audience. And like, oh, that's awesome. So it's fun seeing that part of it.
Yeah, I really like to mingle with the people. It's changed a little bit now that it's grown, but it's really fun for me to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I remember, my first Funnel Hacking Live experience, I remember walking into the hotel and like the whole thing is Funnel Hacking Live. And I'm like, all these people are here to see Russell? Like, I was like, what is happening right now? This is like a small village of people flying in from all over the world to see my neighbor. Like, but
the awkward neighbor down the street.
It was totally Totally. I mean, it was amazing. These people are like getting up really early in the morning, sitting outside. I mean, you open the doors and people are sprinting to the front. You can like literally feel the floor move. I'm like, I mean, I get it. Like, you've changed my life as well. Like, I totally get it. But it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, it is weird. It's just Russell. I don't know.
It's just Russell.
Oh
Oh gosh.
boy.
I could describe Russell as like the shy man in the corner holding his baby to shield himself from anyone coming to talk to him. Like, that's how I think of
Lord, don't
Russell.
leave me.
Oh, I love it. So, in a recent interview you did with Josh Forty about Atlas Shrugged, I loved this part of the interview because you said you described yourself as being remarkably average and how you attribute a lot of your success to just being in motion. So I got goosebumps all over when you started talking about, how like ideas are sprinkled down from, God or Heavenly Father or however you see that. And just it's the people who like are moving and going. So I would love for you to talk about that for a second.
Yeah. I remember when it was right after we kind of started the business. We had Bone and Dallin were just born. So it was our twins who are now almost 15. So they were infants. And BJ Wright and Garrett, two of my buddies, moved here to work for us. And they like lived in our basement for a while. And like it was weird in the early ages. Anyone that like was excited about what I was like doing, I was like hired them because I was like, I need someone to talk to about this. And I remember they worked with me for about a year, and it was funny because like one day they were talking, they said, we realized something really interesting. Like, they're like, you're not smarter than us, you're not a harder worker than us, like, but you're just doing things, you're moving, you're in motion, and so opportunities keep coming to you. Like, he's like, I think it was BJ, it's like me and Garrett just sitting here like doing nothing and nothing's coming to us. And like the fact that your emotion is what causes all these opportunities to come to you. Because like your ideas aren't that great, but as you're moving forward, then like the next idea comes, the next idea, the next idea. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. Like a lot of people see what we've done with ClickFunnels, like, oh, I wish I had a ClickFunnels, I wish I had my thing. And like they're waiting for that thing to come to them. It's like, you don't understand, like it didn't just come to me. If I would have gotten it like at the very beginning, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I would have been crushed under the pressure of what it is. Like, it's not a light burden to carry by any stretch. And I started talking in the interview with Josh. I can't remember exactly what he asked, but he asked, I think, if I believe that ClickFunnels, these things were inspired of God. And I 1,000,000% agree with that. Like, my belief is that for all of us in our lives, like, and it happens in all different areas too. It's not just business. It's happening in business and family and relationships and church and all these different areas. But as you're in motion moving forward, God gives you ideas, and he's testing to see if you're going to be a good steward of that idea. Give you the idea, and sometimes we have the idea and we're like, oh, we don't do anything with it. And he's like, okay, I can't trust Russell with that idea. Maybe he might give you another idea, but if 2 or 3 times, if he gives me ideas or gives me inspiration, I don't do anything with it. He's like, oh, Russell's not a good steward of these, and he's going to not keep giving me ideas. He's going to give to other people. But if you're given an idea and then you take it and you're like, okay, this is a blessing, this is a gift from God. Like, I don't know how to do it. I don't feel worthy. I don't think anyone feels worthy or ready. You're like, okay, this is the thing that I'm supposed to do. So you just start going forward, and as you do that in motion, the next thing comes, and if you prove to God that you're a good steward of an idea, he'll give you another idea and give you another idea. And for me, we were probably over a decade in the business before it was like, oh, here's ClickFunnels. And it's like, oh, and at that time I was ready for it. We were worthy of it, because the process is what makes you worthy of the idea, right? Even if you're not ready. And then you become ready and you become more worthy as you keep moving forward and you keep doing it. And so it's kind of hard to explain, but I think it's important. And I talked about this in Josh's too. I can't remember the name of the book, and someone posted it in the comments, but there's a book someone wrote. I need to find it. I have not read it, but I've had 3 or 4 people tell me about this book. But basically in the book, the person tells the story about, they had this idea for a story and they started writing the story. And then like life got in the way and they didn't finish it. And 2 or 3 years later, somebody else published this book, and it was like a best-selling book, and they bought the book and started reading. It's like, this was the story that I was given. Like, I started writing it and I didn't finish it. Like I was given that idea and then I didn't finish it. And so God took that idea and gave it to somebody else. I think it happens in so many people, so many of our lives. Like, I don't think ideas are, a certain type of person gets them. I think we all get them, but then we're kind of tested to see who's going to be a good steward of this idea. And those who are, you get more ideas and you get more. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is like, when we're given these gifts from God, it's like, okay, I need to be like I need to be a good steward of this idea. And if I do that, if I plant it and I help it grow, then it'll grow and the next thing will keep coming. And that's kind of key. So
I love that. So Colette, would you agree with that assessment that Russell is remarkably average? He just stays in motion.
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, I feel like he is just an amazing man. I want to call him almost a superhero too, because sometimes I'm like, we have this amazing home. He builds such an amazing, like just this, he's such a superhero. Has all this energy, come home from work and spend all this time with, the family, or running them to different sporting events or whatever it may be. And I'm like, how in the world are you still going? And then you get up at whatever 5:30 or 6 a.m. to, try and get a workout in, or continue serving, or whatever's, going on. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like he really is an average person, and a super humble one, and just kind and amazing, which I just love. And but really, he's a superhero, and I just keep thinking, how in the world just keep going and going and going, and is always, I mean, he does have downtime, but it's really, the excitement's there, the state of mind is there, and it just plays out into all hours of the night until you just kind of sit down and pass out. But yeah, he's a good, just when we first got married, it was funny because I'm like, it's just Russell, and that's kind of one of our little jokes now, because now that he's
The other funny thing is, when we first got
Russell.
married, she asked my roommate, like, do you think Russell will be able to like support me and stuff, or am I gonna have to work the rest of my life?
Well, my dream is to be a stay-at-home mom, and so it's quite a big difference in our age. And I just thought, oh my gosh, is he going to be able to support me? Like, this is kind of scary.
I wonder
Oh,
if maybe that's what's kept him going all these years.
yeah, right.
Oh, I love this so much. Okay. You said this the last time you were on my podcast, and I've heard you say it in other places as well. And I always just get so excited when you say it. But you said that you can only be as successful as your spouse will allow you to be. What does that mean to you?
It's funny. I actually remember the first time I came to my head. It was when we were living in the Rossi Street house. So we had just been married. We married a year, and we bought this, because then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm like, we got to buy a house. We bought a house, and then we're renting out half, and we're living in half. And there's a whole bunch of stories from that. But I remember thinking about all the people that I dated prior to Collette and things like that. And it was just like, like all these crazy things that she's allowing me to do, that we're creating and figuring things out. And it's like I know the other people that I would, that I dated in my past, like, I don't think it would have been possible with any of those people. And I remember thinking, like, man, you can only be as successful as your spouse will allow you to be. And I remember at the time, there was a guy I was working for who was awesome. And his wife literally told him to stop his business that he had done. And so he basically took his business that at the time was doing more than I was one of his employees, and he like put it on the shelf, and he went and got a job because his wife was just like, you need to go get a real job. And I remember like hurting for him. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so grateful that Collette is allowing me to do these things that don't make sense, that, we're probably going to just bankrupt on the street someday, but she's like, let's just do it. As long as we're together, let's go for it. And I think I remember being super grateful back then. I mean, we were probably 2-3 years married at the time, just being so grateful that she allowed me to chase these things that didn't make logical sense. And then I see it all the time with entrepreneurs now, where it's like, they're trying and they're pushing it. Their spouse is like, no, you can't do that. Or they're attacking them when the problems are coming. The weight's so heavy, you can't, it's almost impossible to get through that. And it's heartbreaking. I see it so many times to so many people. And so I'm just grateful for Collette allowing me to do the crazy stuff. And I'm a big believer that you can only be successful with your spouse allowed to be, because you can't do it by yourself. It takes a team of people to create something like this. And the most important person on the team is your spouse. And then obviously there's employees and partners, all other kind of stuff. But like, man, if things aren't right at home, it makes it really hard. And we've talked about this, just how grateful we are, like the ClickFunnels partners, like everyone's happily married. They got amazing spouses. Like having that foundation has been so important for the success of the company as a whole. I mean, you start, when marriages start breaking down, everything else crumbles at the same time. So we've been grateful and blessed to this point to have that within the company as well.
What are you most grateful for, Collette, of all the crazy adventures, raising your family together, better or worse, thick or thin? What's been the best part for you?
Okay, well, there's lots of things. I think it's been really fun to see Russell take this journey and go with it. But for me, I mean, really my dream, I just remember always as a little girl, just to be able to stay home with my family and help raise them and do the mom thing. And I know that's not for everybody, but really, I just was super excited. And maybe it's because I did see my mom work really, really hard too. And she was a single mom. And I was just super excited to have this goal to be able to just to be home and do the home thing. And it's hard. It's hard.
So
Maybe I
hard.
sometimes really do want a real job.
Get out of
Like,
here, especially during quarantine.
but oh my gosh, like there's so many amazing experiences that we've been blessed with. And I hate to say that I just hang on to Russell's little his coattails. Is that the right way to say it? Yeah. Oh, it's late. Anyways, but just to hang on, and I'm on this amazing journey, and we've been to some amazing places and met some seventh power people that, man, I just pinch myself. Like we just recently had this pinch me type trip, and I mean, but it hasn't come overnight. Russell's worked 15, 20, how long have we been married? 18 years, but like has worked really hard to get to his Dream 100 list. And now it's like, oh my gosh, this person is like a friend, like a real friend. And it's just really neat. And so for me, I love that. I love being able to just have these experiences where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting around this table right now with like, I don't know, do I say these names? Like Rachel Hollis and Jenna Kuchar and Brendan Burchard. I don't know. I was just like, this is the coolest thing. The Bill Hughes, Lisa and Tom. And I'm like, this is amazing. And everything that they have to offer and everything that they've been through in their journey is just like, oh, it helps fill my bucket as well. Those are the big experiences, but really it's just even the experiences with our family, being able to take them to crazy exotic places and I don't know, just go do something, pick it up and go. So man, I'm forever grateful. And even if we didn't have those things, like these big, like the big things, oh my gosh, like I'm just so happy. I tell Russell all of the time, like I'd be happy living in just a 2,500 square foot house, 3-bedroom house, and just be cozy and happy. That's my dream. But I love everything that we have and everything that's been built. So it's been a fun experience for sure. It is very true. I feel like when Russell, he works so hard, right? So when money comes in, I'm like, oh my gosh, now we can build this house for my mom. Oh my gosh, now we can give all of this money to these amazing kids in Africa. Oh my gosh.
She's a better person than me because I'm like,
Right.
hey, we just got this thing. Like, what should we do? She's like, let's help somebody else. I'm like, what about? Okay. She's a much better person than me.
Who can we buy? Let's buy someone a car. I don't know.
Isn't that cool too? Because like, besides like, buying people stuff or whatever, help with that, like the other cool stuff is just like going to Kenya. I've been to Kenya now 4 or 5 times, helping build schools there, helping raise money for Operation Underground Railroad and seeing like those. It's just like these things that have been kind of byproduct of building this company, right? These other opportunities that have come, they're just like, oh, we can use our platform to help here and help here. And then you see like the effect of that. And it's just like, God, like, it's funny because we've had the conversation so many times, like why in the world 18 years ago was I like that seed in my head, like this marketing thing is cool. You should go read 100 books from old dead people about how to sell stuff through direct mail. Like, why was I so excited about that? I don't know. But now you look at, 16 years later, it's like, oh, can you help build a funnel to save kids from sex slavery? Like, oh, I know exactly what to do. But it was like, that seed was planted, that created a desire, that got you excited. And it comes back to this whole thing that it's just like, if you take the ideas and you keep moving forward, like God's got a plan for you. It doesn't make sense initially, but if you stick with it for a year, for 3 years, for 18 years, the things start coming. And it's just like the skill sets and talents he's given you may not be for what you think they're for. Like I thought, this is so I can get rich, just so I can make money. It's like, that's been a cool byproduct, but it also, it's like, oh, you can save children here. You can help over here. You can do things that you didn't know that was the path as you were starting, but now it's like, man, the skill sets I've learned, like they're super helpful in things that actually do matter a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that so much. Okay. So I actually crowdsourced a few questions from my community because this is exciting. I get like Russell and Collette right here. So I'm just gonna like quick fire ask you these questions that people have sent me to ask you, and yeah, either of you can answer it. They're kind of mostly targeted at Russell, but for sure,
That's
Collette, if you
okay.
have something to
You
say,
can answer.
jump in.
No, I'm good.
What do you think, Colette?
So the first one is, what's your why? Like I've heard you say, Russell, that you have more than enough money at this point. What keeps you getting out of bed and showing up to serve your community every single day?
Yeah, for me, when I think when most people start a business is because you're like, I want to make some money, because that's like the driving thing that like starts it. And then the weirdest thing will happen, and you won't understand this until you make a bunch of money, how unfulfilling money actually is. You get it and you're like, huh, that was it? Like, well, that sucks. But then what happens if you do it correctly is there's this really cool byproduct where the people that you are serving inside your business, you get a glimpse of like what's happening to them. And so for me, it was like, as we started launching ClickFunnels and things started happening, it was like we went from, prior to ClickFunnels was the backside of a big business crash where we were just scrambling to stay alive, and it was a really painful, dark time. And then this started working, started taking off, and then I remember some of the first success stories started coming through, like Brandon and Caitlin Poland. And we watched this young couple who came into our world like on the brink of bankruptcy. They took the principles we taught them, took their own talents and abilities, and they launched this thing. And now, fast forward 4 years later, has created a movement that's helped over 1 million women lose weight. Right? And it's like, that is amazing. You got, God, I could share you 100 different case studies. Like Chris from chrisbeatscancer.com, right? Like solves cancer for himself, naturally heals himself of cancer, and like has these gifts, doesn't know what to do with it. We're able to help him in a little way to like, here's some tools, some resources to go do that. And now he's saving tens of thousands of people naturally who've got cancer, like saving their lives. I started looking at that and look at each person that comes into our world, that we get to be a little piece in that journey of like, oh, here's some stuff that you need to understand. Here's a tool that helps you do it. And then they take their God-given gifts and they go and they push it out there. And then I have this really cool thing now where we're out to look at like the actual ripple effects. I can see everybody's funnels. I can see how many leads are coming, how much, and it's like, you can tangibly see the ripple effect of tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions of people's lives have been affected because of like these things we're doing. And for me, like that at this point is the why. Like that's the reason. Like we share stories all the time. Like check out so-and-so and so-and-so, and you start seeing these things, you see the stories. And that's what fires me up. That's why I keep going. So.
I love it. Okay. We've got a money question, then we're going to go family. So the money question is, what are the biggest mind shifts required to move from 7 to 8 to 9 figures?
Okay. The hardest is actually getting 7 figures. That one was
right. 6. Maybe start at 6 to 7, 7 to 8.
Yeah, the 7-figure one was just a belief one. Like I tried probably 4 or 5 years in a row where I missed it barely, like by like $50,000. Like every January I'd reset it. I'm like, I'm gonna do this calendar year. That was the hardest one. And then I think that was just like, you have to learn how to sell your thing and being aggressive consistently enough to sell enough of what you're selling. You know what I mean? Because from $0 to $1 million is all about just learning what your product is and how to sell it. Like, and then just doing that a lot. As soon as you get past 7 figures, then it's like, okay, it starts getting so heavy where like, I can't keep doing customer support and selling and like all the things, right? Because you're kind of the person juggling it all. So by $1 million is where you're like, I have to start I need help. And it's like, how do you replace yourself? And like, okay, I'm juggling all these balls. Like I'm gonna get somebody who can just do this piece and someone here. So it's like learning how to shift from you being the all-star who's doing everything to like, you got to be the coach now, like, okay, coaching a team of people. And that for me was like a really hard process for me to learn. Because I was a good all-star. So it was hard to like, Michael Jordan never was a coach. The coach is a bunch, like it's just harder and it's different skill set. I think a lot of entrepreneurs never make that leap because that skill set's hard. It's just different it's not the same thing. Just because you're a good entrepreneur doesn't mean you're a good manager of people. And so you have to learn that skill set. And when you get the right dream team of people in place, then going from 7 to 8 figures is actually really easy because it's scaling yourself, right? And so it's getting the right team and then scaling. And then like from 8 to 9 figures is just brute force. Like you've got to have, Dean Graziosi calls it marketing stamina. Like it's just like you've got to be insanely aggressive. Like people who ever, I feel bad, like people who like, on Ellie's soccer team, the parents like, oh, I looked up you on Facebook and now I see you every day. It's like, yeah, you're going to see me for the rest of your life because we're spending so much money on ads. Like after you, like, that's why I don't try to tell people what I do. Because soon they find out, it's like, they see me every day, all the time, everywhere they go, because we're relentless. We're spending a ton of money. It's just getting your numbers and your metrics dialed in so you can dump gas on the fire to grow, right? So first is you learning the skill set. Number 2 is you building a team to replicate yourself so you can handle, a lot of people handling the load. And number 3 is making sure your metrics, your numbers are good so you can just outspend everyone else. We spend over $1 million a month on advertising, and that's how we get some people. I didn't know this. That's what's happening over here. But that's how we get so many people to come into our world consistently. We got people in place to be able to handle it now. And so that's kind of the tiers, is mastering yourself, building a team to replicate yourself, and then spending enough money to get your message out to the masses.
I love it. Okay. Here is, I love who asked this question. What do you plan time for first? Yourself, your spouse, your kids, or time for your business? And in what order do you plan that?
Ooh.
I'll take that one first. I can do that.
We're going to write that down. Okay. So yourself, your family.
Yourself, your spouse, your family, your kids, yeah, your business. Like what order? Like when you think about a day, like how do you plan what you're doing?
I start with myself. I get up pretty early in the morning and start with meditation and prayer. And I know Russell gets up and starts with workout before anybody's awake. And so I feel like I start with myself, and then it jumps into family, and then business, and then ripple effect.
And back to family.
Yeah, then back to family.
Because it's more like the blocking out of the day, right? It's just like the only sane time you have is before the kids wake up. So like there's your moment to like be with yourself and your own thoughts before like the chaos. And that's like there's the window between them waking up and then like situated doing school or whatever, where you're like, it's all family chaos. And then from there it's like either work or whatever during the day, and then after that it's back to family, and then kids finally go to bed, and it's like, oh, how are you doing today? We're finally gonna see each other from 9 till we pass out.
Yeah, right.
I love it. So that brings up another question. I didn't write it down, but I remember it. Somebody said, what tool do you use to schedule like your business meetings and your like taking your kids to soccer, and like how do you coordinate all of that?
So I have it all in Google Calendars. That's been how I do it, because then my assistant can throw in my meetings. I can throw stuff in, throw stuff in. And I do block out stuff. I know Bowen's got wrestling every day at 3. So like that's blocked out, just happens. Down's got boxing from here to here. Where, so my calendar, like all the hard code things that don't shift are all in there all the time. They're all recurring. So it's just like, you see that, and then we fill in all the other meetings and stuff in the gaps in between. And so, yeah, there's definitely the structure time and then the open time to fit in things.
Okay, so how do you find the energy and mental capacity to manage your business and be engaged with your spouse and your kids?
Supplements, baby.
A lot of supplements. I think there's truth to that though. Like part of it is, I think people are tired because they eat horribly. Like I used to, like when we first started the business, I didn't understand eating at all. So like I eat cereal for breakfast and I eat sandwiches for lunch, and then like it was horrible. Like I didn't know any better, and I gained a bunch of weight, and I was tired and I was sluggish, and I didn't realize what carbs do to your brain. Like I eat a sandwich now and I pass out, So like for me personally, it's like I'm managing like what I'm eating. Like I'm eating very clean throughout the day just to keep energy levels awake. A lot of supplements, because otherwise, yeah, like I used to, and I see my employees all the time. Like they go out to lunch, and they come back eating McDonald's, and then like the rest of the day, there's like, I'm like, I'm still going hard, and I've worked twice as long as you, but I didn't just pound a bunch of carbs in my brain to make me pass out. So I think that's for me. You have anything else you do?
Yeah, no, I'm just love my routines in the morning, and yeah, they keep you going. So yay for that. I want to say, do I sell that kind of stuff? I don't know. I just am a big green drink person. I might get my greens in.
I added one thing recently. It's been my happiest thing in the whole world. In fact, when this gets done, this is what I'm doing next. So I figured out my my macros in a way where I can eat a pint of Halo ice cream every night.
Wow.
I've had ice cream every night for the last.
It's no joke. My freezer is overflowing with Halo ice cream. I want to cry.
It's amazing. But all day long, I eat healthy because I'm like, I get ice cream tonight in like 6 hours. I'm putting the kids to bed and like they're going crazy. I'm like, I get ice cream in an hour from now. And then every night I get sit down and I eat as slow as I possibly can. And it is amazing. And it's only 330 calories and a ton of protein for a huge pint every night.
I did see you walk in the other day with a bag full, and you started just unloading the Halos into the freezer, and I was like, huh.
It is the greatest thing in the world.
A new freezer because no more room for Halo.
Oh, that's awesome. They should be paying for this. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out. Okay. So How do you communicate when your spouse or family when you need to put additional energy into a new goal for your business?
I learned this early on. So if I call Collette at 6 o'clock at night when I'm supposed to come and be like, hey, we got to pull on ladder tonight because blah, 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 blah. That never worked out good in my favor ever. And so, yeah, which I understand because like you're expecting, you got dinner, whatever, especially as kids start coming in. It's just, so I started learning like ahead of time, like, hey, this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I got slides for whatever, this event here. So, and I feel like anytime I would tell you in advance where you could like mentally prepare for it, it was like just smooth sailing. Every time it was like spur of the moment, like, hey, so I'm not coming home tonight. Never good.
Well,
It's not bad. It's you got to mentally
it's
prepare
tricky.
people.
Then I have to like adjust my carpool. I do have a lot of resources. I'm not complaining, but
I think as long as you're up front, it's just some prepare. And I see it a lot of times with people who don't. They're like, oh, I messed with my wife and pulling on lighter tonight. Like, you should have told her before right now, because now it's not going to go well for you. It never does.
Calling Uber Eats for dinner.
Yeah, and the other side of it is just like it's tough because like sometimes it's hard. Like last week, with 2 days notice, I'm like, I'm flying to Atlanta for a week. Is that okay? And I'm sure that was not easy on you. And you're like, no, like I understand you need to be there, and you were super supportive. And it wasn't like you didn't guilt trip me. I didn't feel guilty going there. I wasn't like, because that would have been so easily could have been like, oh, you're really gonna leave, and it would have been hard. And then like the whole trip would have been just really difficult and like painful. But you were super good. Like, no, I understand why you need to go there. Do your thing. I'm gonna support you. And I was able to go and produce, and like we had to get so much stuff done, and I was able to do it without any of that stress and anxiety and stuff that would have came with it normally. Anyway, so thank you for that, by the way.
Sure.
Tell you that.
Anytime.
Oh, I love this. Okay. So when do you know when you've done enough for the day or the week so you can be fully present with your spouse and your family?
I'll just laugh because I don't know.
It's a good question. I think it's different seasons is different. You know what I mean? Like there are seasons where it's like we're launching ClickFunnels. It's just like it was weeks at a time where it's like all nighters for like 2 weeks. Like, hey, we're not gonna, but nowadays it's like things are more emotion. And so it's like, I'm okay just ending before it's due. You know what I mean? Like, where it's just like, hey, it's like tonight it was like 5 o'clock and Aiden was there and I was like, all right, let's go. I can do another hour or 2 or 3, but like, let's just go. And it was fine. And so I think it's just understanding there's seasons for that. Seasons of unbalance where it's like hard, and as long as you get everyone on the same page, like, hey, we're in a season of unbalance, we're launching a new thing, or we're going bankrupt, or whatever the thing is, like, this is gonna be a season of unbalance. I promise we can come back and rebalance. Where then other seasons you can be more balanced, more present, more around. And sometimes it's just kind of like right now I feel like we're in a stage where it's just kind of, the schedule's there and there's nothing like hard deadlines coming up, so it's easier.
Been the best ever.
And then we have Halo ice cream every night.
Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be a tough one because I know we're all learning this, but how do you raise your kids in a way that you could give them everything, but you're teaching them to work for things?
Kids are so hard. This part is married. Just everyone who's struggling with kids, we get it. It's so hard. I think one thing, it's funny because I hear Down say to his friends all the time, like, you're rich. He's like, no, my dad is. He won't give me any money. Like, I would tell him, like,
good. You're doing good then.
Yeah, like just so you know, like, you're not getting money when you leave. Like, you have to make your own money. I made my own. You're gonna make your own. You're not getting inheritance. We're gonna spend all this money before you get a shot at it. Like, don't plan on it. Like, I don't know. Like, I've known too many kids. I had a lot of people who were in my world who were parents who had kids who then just like brought their kids in and gave them all the money. And like, I saw what it did to a lot of them. I was just like, I don't think that helps them. I don't know.
Yeah, we're pretty low key. I just feel like, I don't know. I mean, we're not into the high end shopping, which is amazing. And I don't know. I just feel like they're good kids. I mean, heck yeah, I do give in if they're like, hey, my friends are here. I need $10 to go Taco Bell or whatever. But gosh, I really feel blessed. And I don't know how we did it or what we're doing, but and there are days that are really tricky and you're trying to learn how to navigate that a certain situation or whatever, but man,
They're good kids.
they're pretty good kids. And it's really, it reassures me too. And I have friends, moms reach out to me and they're like, just, so you know, like maybe a day that I'm particularly struggling with one of my kiddos, so I'll get a shout out from a parent saying, you know what, I just had this conversation with your son today and he is a pretty good kid. I just need to tell you that. And I'm like,
Thank
you're
you.
right. He's a good kid. I don't want to kill him today. But like, so, I mean, stuff like that's really comforting to me, but I don't know how the heck we're doing it. What are we doing? I
It's a
just
big
feel like
whirlwind.
they're
One
pretty-
day at a time, like all the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not writing a book on parenting anytime soon, so we're just still trying to figure it out
Nope.
as we go. And Colette's really good because like sometimes I'll get like the point where it's just like I'm bubbling over and I'm just like, and she'll like smile and like grab me and like, someday you're gonna miss this. Like, don't forget that. Like, I'm like,
Miss it.
you're right. Okay.
Go to the other room and let your bell ring out for a minute. Come back.
Yeah, Colette's good at notice that. I think we tag team. Sometimes you go crazy, sometimes I go
Oh,
crazy. It's not too often
I
we're
think
going
your
crazy at the
daughter,
same
poor
time.
Brindley, has seen me kind of visit one time. I was like, oh, oopsies.
I've
Anyway.
actually never seen Russell bubble over, so that is a little bit surprising to me.
Oh, it happens.
It happens? Okay, well, learn something new every day. This is fantastic. All right, last one of this series, but do you have any regrets or things you would have done differently?
I think that I wish that when by the times the company was struggling, I wish I would have been more open with Collette. I think I was scared. I didn't want to hurt her. I remember at Funnel Hacking Live Dallas, I did this. It was the first time we introduced the concept of one funnel way. And I just told like my one funnel way story all the times the company like, built up and crashed, and all these things like that. And I was just telling these stories how painful it was. I remember afterwards you came up and you had tears in your eye. You're like, why did you tell me some of those things? I was like, I didn't want you to worry and stress and like, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
you know, and I think it would have been, I wish I would have been more open with that and just, then we could have dealt some things together as opposed to like you feeling isolated, probably me feeling alone, stuff like that, where I was just,
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of moments like that, feeling isolated and alone. So yeah, when he was telling that story, I was like, oh, I cannot believe you went through that alone. We're supposed to be this team. So I mean, that's definitely something we've learned and navigated through. But yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think for the producer, sometimes you want to protect everybody, and it's like by doing that, sometimes you're not actually protecting them. So, and I still fall that default. We had the other day I came over, I was very upset, and she's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Nothing." And finally, I was like, "You really want to know?" Like, yeah. So I'm still not perfect at it. It's just it's tough when you're trying to be the protector, trying to make sure that everything, you know, at least. I don't know, like most of us, we're creating our own worlds, right? Like this is the world. I want to protect this world from any outside chaos and noise. And it's hard, but sometimes it's important to let everyone in the home know what's happening so they can all be prepared too.
So good. Oh, that's so valuable. All of this has been so valuable, but I want to give Collette the last word here because my listeners actually love hearing from Collette. I have the download numbers to prove that.
Yes.
So you are winning. I've actually aired an episode with Russell and one with Collette, and Collette is winning. You have more downloads. So what is your best advice as the spouse of an entrepreneur who never slows down about how to manage through the ups and downs and the not so fun parts of the entrepreneurial journey?
Well, a lot of Tony Robbins. No, I just feel like I remember in 2007, I just went, I remember really struggling. We were kind of having this really hard patch and it's hard. Like I'm not perfect. This journey really has been hard. And I get the question all of the time from a spouse about how to endure this journey. Well, it's different for everybody, I think. And the mentality we give it, because I know there's a lot of emotions that come with an entrepreneurial husband, whether you work together or you're watching your spouse go through it. But that's up to me to navigate. And if I'm going to have a crappy attitude about him, oh my gosh, like trying to make it all work, or then I'm going to be miserable. And so I just made a choice in the very beginning, like this mentality. And of course, I've had bad days, um, but just the meaning I give an entrepreneur. Like, yeah, it's hard. It's really hard, but the journey has been so rewarding. And so I think journaling I've been a really good journaling. That's kind of like the entrepreneurial life. Like you're super good and it's not so great, right? But I think it's super important to write down your emotions and feelings. And we are not great communicators. Like that's something we've really struggled with in our marriage. And I feel like we hold it in, we hold it in, we hold it in because we don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. And of course that comes down to us personally. But man, I just say, this journey's up to you. And if you want to be a part of it, then you need to be all in or figure out a different plan. But it's not fun living in an unhappy marriage. And if you're going to, I don't know, pull somebody down, I don't want to be that person, you know? So for me, watching Russell go through this entrepreneurial, crazy, crazy life of learning how to do and make things, this marketing game, you know, where it is today, is rewarding. And especially after it's a long, hard journey, but when you do start to see a little something, you're like, oh my gosh, this gratitude. So just filling your gratitude bucket for your spouse, it's not easy sometimes because they're long hours. And anyway, I'm probably talking in circles, but I'm just saying, you got to remember what meaning you're giving to everything and how you want to live your life and whether it's going to be a happy life or a miserable life. And so it's just kind of up to your sweet little mind. Your mind is in control of all of those emotions. So
You figure, like, I think a lot of times people put so much weight on, like, it's got to be successful, we got to make money, and
yeah,
um but you think back, we talked about this before, like our probably some of our happiest times in our marriage when we were broke,
my
making like
gosh,
$400 a month,
seriously, so
living in a
fun.
house. It's like, what if we just like treat each other nice and we're happy? And worst case scenario, we're broke together on the side of the road. Best case scenario, something amazing happens. But like being broke wasn't as bad as, sometimes it's a lot harder having a lot of money. Like, completely honest, like, you're like, I don't know, like some people are like, oh, it's gonna be a hard problem to have a lot of money, but like it causes a bunch of other weird things that happen that you don't
Yeah,
expect. It's harder to make friends that are real. It's harder to, you know, like it's easier to like mask problems as opposed to just dealing with. Like there's a lot of stuff they're different problems, but I think if you look at it like worst case scenario, like, and I deal like a lot of entrepreneurs, I teach them this, like if you're scared of like what the worst case scenario is, you can't move forward. So like, look, like, what's the worst case scenario? Okay, let's all be cool with that, and then let's go and just roll the dice, have some fun, let's see what can happen. Worst case, we get kicked out of our house, move an apartment, and start over again and see what we do next. I don't know.
yeah,
Kind of fun. Be good for our kids, huh?
yeah. I don't know. It would be good for our kids. They're ready to move out already. So, anyways, yeah, it's just been fun, and it's just my heart is so full, and that journey's up to me. So, I
Well,
don't know.
I love you guys. I think the world of you, and like honestly, I mean, if I were to like try and think of all the people in the world who have ever been successful, like, I mean, I get to see you guys live every single day, right? I mean, I get to see you drive carpool, and when I drive carpool and drop your kids off, like Russell's standing at the door with Nora waving. Like, I mean, you're just regular people, but I feel like you're superhero people because you've been able to handle this massive success with such grace. And your family is visibly important to you. And I salute you for keeping, your priorities in check while also changing the world and changing a lot of lives. And so hats off to you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. And thank you for all that you do and all that you guys exemplify.
Thank you for all that you do, and again, congratulations on 3 years. This is so exciting.
That's cool.
I can't believe it. Pretty dang exciting.
Because of you, I'm sure this journey would have looked different for me if you had not sat on my couch and said, just start talking and you'll find your voice.
But at the same time, like I always tell people, like, I don't think I'm responsible for anybody's success. Like we just got to be a little piece in the journey. And I'm grateful that
Yeah.
I got a little piece. I'm grateful that you actually took it and ran with it, because most people don't. And you're just getting started. You're 3 years in. Wait till you're 15, then 25, and
Oh my
think of the
gosh.
ripple effect you're going to make overall all the time with it. So keep doing it. Don't stop, and it'll keep getting better every single year.
Oh, thank you guys so much.
Mhm.
To learn more ways to deepen your intimacy and strengthen your relationship, make sure you watch this video next.